Welcome once again to Train Tuesday. I'm your host, Jim Wiggin with Athearn, and we're going to be talking some Athearn stuff tonight. We're going to be talking about SD40T-2s. Before we get started, let's do some shout outs. Let's see who's out there joining us in virtual train world. We've got Jason's Trains, Chad. We got Eugene, KCG Rail Gilbert. We've got Frederick and Shannon. And Frederick, Shannon, Frederick. Mark, Delta 9, Ron is coming in from Pleasant, New Jersey, or Point Pleasant, New Jersey. We got Sid, got Cornell Custom Trains. We've got BN Green 1970 from the Pacific Northwest. Matt's Conrail Chicago Main Line. Good evening from Galesburg, Illinois. Oh, good evening, Matt. I know that area well. We've got John, William, Gary, Anthony, Are You a Train Man Too? Stephen, Ian, Ibuprofen Dave, Tim Peters, Terry, Chad, Gary. We got a great bunch of guys with us tonight. So, yeah, like I said, we're going to be talking about the Athearn line of the SD40T-2s, the tunnel motors. And I know a lot of you guys are excited about these. We're going to be running some great roads. We're going to talk a little bit about them tonight, and we'll also have some time for your questions towards the end of the show. So before we get started, let's do another round of shout outs real quick. Shouting out to David, Harold, Zach, Ronald, Wayne, Anthony, Dave, BNSF N Scale. Not tonight, Dave, but join us soon. We will. DG Model Works is in the house. Gabe, Scott, and Alan K. Clark Sr. has joined us. Owen, Amy, Forrest, and the list keeps growing. So welcome aboard Train Tuesday. So glad to have you here. And if I look a little tired tonight, that's because I just got back from a 14-hour drive from the Rocky Mountain Train Show in Denver, Colorado. What a great show. It was great to meet some of you guys out there and see your faces instead of a screen name, and talk model trains. And if you missed us at Rocky Mountain, don't worry, we've got plenty of train shows coming up. Our next train show that we'll be at the St. Louis RPM meet in July. So if you can make it to that show, definitely join us there. But let's get started in talking about the Athearn SD40T-2s. All right, so we've offered these in the past, but we wanted to change things up just a little bit and give you some different options. The first group that we've got here, we've got 3 Union Pacific versions, and these were after the UP took over the SP in 1996. Several of these older units, they were repainted in the UP colors. And while UP had many roster changes, it was common during this period for batches of locomotives to get renumbered. And these 3 here depict that renumbered versions just before they were retired. And these were in 2001. So we have 2923, 2929, and 2930. And for you guys that are fans of the Red Sill era, here you go. And interesting time. Now, the other thing, too, is these are your standard -2 cabs that EMD had. But if we look carefully, you can see a little bit of change to the front windows. And we're going to talk about the L window a little bit later. But you can see there's a little bit of a difference here. That one window on the engineer side, a little bit wider. So coming up next, we had to do Denver, Rio Grande. And you know what? While I was at the Rocky Mountain Train Show, a lot of requests for this. Guys were really excited about these, and we're more than happy to oblige and get you these locomotives. So we've got these in 3 different road numbers as well. And these are based on 1990s versions. It's an interesting time for a lot of the railroads in the 1990s, and it's no wonder why there's so many of you guys that are modeling the 1990s. And this example would be an SP era Rio Grande SD40T-2s. Now, the SP has always been known for having a plethora of lights on their diesels. And during this period, the Stratolite beacon, which you can see here, and front ditch lights were added to many of the Denver Rio Grande Western locomotives. Now, the combination of the factory installed lights along with the nose Mars lights that they had installed, rail fans affectionately call these Christmas or Xmas lights. It was a pretty neat, interesting setup. And we're going to offer this in this release. Now, if these are available in both DCC with the Tsunami 2 sound system or standard DC. If you get the Tsunami 2 sound, all of these lighting features that you see here, they are going to function. So again, this is 1990s. And not only do you have all those lighting features, but you've got your ditch lights as well, since we're talking 1990s. We're offering 3 different road numbers, so it's real easy for you to build your fleet. Now here's one, again, this was highly requested. We have our product suggestion email, and this was one that was suggested many times. And so let's talk about these Kodachromes. So as you probably already know, both the Southern Pacific and the Santa Fe during the mid-1980s was trying to become one railroad, the SPSF, which we'll talk about that in a second too. They were so sure that the merger would be approved, they started to repaint locomotives into their new corporate colors, using Southern Pacific red and Santa Fe yellow. They came up with this bright, really vibrant scheme, really showed up well, really well executed. Unfortunately, the then ICC, they denied the merger, leave an example of what some rail fans would nickname, you guessed it, shouldn't paint so fast. By the end of the merger negotiations, only 3 of these locomotives were painted. These are snoot nose SD40T-2s. We're offering all 3, which have slightly different details between them. And we'll talk about that. Now, the first one I have here, 8315. It has a 123-inch nose, not the 88-inch nose like we saw in the previous versions. Has a nose brake wheel, cab-mounted bell, plows on both ends, modified front L window. Remember, we told you I was going to talk about that. The grip battery box doors, and the Santa Fe style font numbers. So looking at this, you can see that modified L again. And since it's SP, it's going to have those lighting functions that SP was so known to have. If you look carefully, and fans of the SP will know, they had a slightly different font for their number boards, more of a sans serif style or a Times font, where Santa Fe had this style of font. Even though it was an SP unit, they were so sure of the merger, they were going with the Santa Fe font. Here you can see the brake wheel instead of the ratchet style. And those are just some of the characteristics of this locomotive. Going on to 8351. Now this one has a slightly smaller nose. It's not an 88-inch, but this one's a 116. It's a 116-inch nose. This one's got the ratcheted brake. This has got the cab roof mounted bell. It's got plows on both ends, modified front L window, the grip battery box doors like the previous unit, standard rear headlight, SP style fonts on the number boards. So taking a look at this real closely, we'll start with the nose. Standard SP lights. Here's that modified L. Instead of an almost square style rectangle, you can definitely, when I zoom in, you can see the difference between the engineer side of the windshield versus the other side. You can also see the difference in the font. Here's one of the noticeable spotting features. Remember, the last one had the brake wheel. This has got the ratchet. And you'll also notice too that there's a very slight difference in the nose. So let's go back and forth and compare these two. Now watch the front porch, and you'll see that the 116 is slightly shorter, not by much, but it is slightly shorter and definitely a lot longer than the standard 88-inch. Now the next one, again, this is going to have the brake wheel versus the ratchet. This is also got the 123-inch nose with the brake wheel frame-mounted bell on this one, not on the cab. Plows on both, on just the front end actually, not both, but just the front, and the front L window. This one has standard battery box doors, not the grip or the rebuild that SP had done to these. And this also has SP style font numbers. You can really tell the differences here. Now check this out on the cab. Now this was something that both railroads and EMD were experimenting in the 70s and 80s, and SP experimented with this quite often. And you can see that instead of just two separate windows, it was one large window, looks like an L, well, hence the L. It was originally done for better visibility. In the end, they kind of abandoned it because of cost. It was better to have windows that were all a certain size in their inventory versus an odd window like this. So they eventually abandoned that. You can definitely see the difference in the number boards here. This is definitely an SP font. And again, you can see that that nose extends quite further than the 116 that we talked about earlier. Here's our bell mounted on the frame. And again, it's got all those lighting features. So every once in a while, we'll do a locomotive that could have been, some people think should have been, but never really was, or it never really happened, or the railroad never committed to the painting of that unit. And that's what we call our legendary liveries. And 8392 in the Black Widow paint scheme is part of our legendary liveries. It never really happened. But for those that maybe the SP lives on and you want a heritage unit, you could definitely justify this on your layout. This is what we call, we have a fun time of what if. We could leave the imagination to visualize what would happen if SP never adopted the gray and red bloody nose paint scheme that was so common just before UP. This is part of the legendary liveries line. We are offering what we think could be reality if it was allowed to happen. And it's referred to as the Black Widow from rail fans. And this is the representation of what we think the Black Widow would look on this particular unit. Now, again, this is not real. It's not based on any one real locomotive. It's a what if, or could have happened if SP was allowed to continue. So here we have 8392. It is basically based on a Southern Pacific prototype with Southern Pacific lighting features, fonts, basically what it would have appeared if it was in the standard gray and scarlet scheme, but done up in the Black Widow. We're offering two. We've got 8393 as well. So definitely something fun that you could put on the modules or the layout or the club layout. If you want to do something a little bit different, this would be definitely one that would get some attention. And it's something fun that we like to do occasionally. But again, this is part of the legendary liveries. We're offering these two models, and these are available both in standard DC as well as DCC with Tsunami 2. Now, speaking of the Southern Pacific standard paint scheme, here we go. This is what a lot of us remember. Basically, in summary, to revise their image, SP started to use a new speed lettering scheme adapted in 1991. Also during this time, they started to remove parts of their well-known light packages. And simply put, if a light failed to function, they simply removed the lighting function. They would remove the light and all that. Sometimes they'd leave the bracket behind, and it was just less maintenance. If you think about all those lights that they had on their units, at one time, of course, they had a purpose. But if one of those lights were to go out and it required maintenance, it was just more downtime that the railroad couldn't afford. And the SP was doing extremely well at this time. They were extremely busy, and so they just actively started to remove these extra lights as they broke down, leaving empty brackets and plates where they were once installed. Some other changes included the addition of front ditch lights, and the horn was now relocated from the cab to the long hood of the unit. So we've got a couple here that we're going to show you. Here we have 8237. And this is a former SP unit. It's got the blank SP nose, UDE light and cab gyro light, whip antenna on the ground pane with conduit and a modified L window. So as you can see, you can really notice it from its side profile, some of the lighting that's been replaced. The horn, which used to be up here, along with the bell, have changed locations. Bell's on the frame here. Horn has been moved to the long end of the hood, long hood. So it still has all those subtle details that any SP locomotive would have. Some of them have been removed, but you can definitely tell where they were. We can definitely see that on the back of the unit. We can see those cover plates. But you can still see the equipment box. They used to hold all those mechanisms. And this is appropriate for you guys that are modeling 1991 and further. Here's 8256. And again, you're going to see some subtle differences here. Relocation of the horns, relocation of the bell, and just taking away those lighting features, because by 1991 they weren't in use anymore. Here you can also see where the cab lights have been removed and they've been capped over. We're going to have that detail available on this model. So again, if you like the lights and you like all of the different lighting features, you're going to want to probably gravitate towards the earlier releases. If you're more of a 90s modeler and this is what you remember of the Southern Pacific, you're definitely going to want to grab these. Now we're doing 3 different numbers for the 91 and on scheme. Here's 8294, 88-inch nose, brake wheel, relocated horn, relocated bell. Again, that's a very interesting era to model. If you're doing the 1990s, it was a neat time to catch a lot of these things trackside. So we're also doing the Potash Corporation, and we're offering 2 different ones, and they've got a kind of a cool background. This one here that we're showing, number 35021, this is a former Southern Pacific unit. If you look carefully here, and we'll zoom in on this a little bit, it's got the blank SP nose, the UDE light and cab gyro light. This one also has the whip antenna on the ground pane with conduit, and it's got the modified L window. So this is a former SP unit. It does have the 88-inch nose. You can see where the lighting functions were. They've been removed, they've been plated over. It has had its bell mounted to the frame, as well as relocating the horn to the long hood. And again, let's look at the back. You can see where those lights have been removed and plated over. So when they got these locomotives, SP had already done all of that. Its sister unit, 35022, this one's a former Denver Rio Grande unit. It also has the blank nose class lights, and it has a small Sinclair antenna. So it's a little bit different. They look, at a passing glance, they look very similar. A little bit different. Take a look at the nose. Not the same lighting features as the SP unit, but if you look carefully, the class lights that were up here, those have been completely taken out, smoothed over like they never existed. Same thing here. You can still see the equipment boxes there for the lighting, but the lighting has now been removed. You also have ditch lights on both the front and the rear. So again, these are all the SD40T-2s that we're going to be offering this run. You have until April 29th to place your pre-orders with your preferred dealer. And, you know, a lot of you guys were asking for these. So it was time for us to rerun them. And we did a little bit different this time. We offered some different roads that we had got a lot of requests for. So let's get back to some comments. This is a good time for any questions that you might have on these. And again, you're going to have until April 29th. That's a Friday. Got a couple of weeks yet to pre-order these. You can see these in detail at our website at athearn.com. Just go into the new announcements and pull up the PDF. And if you want to, you can even print that PDF out. We're offering these in both DC, which means they're DC ready. They got a 21 pin ready to accept your preferred brand of decoder or just to run DC. Just keep in mind that any of the lighting functions that we talked about, they are not going to work in the DC mode. In order to experience those lighting features, you'll need to get the Tsunami 2 decoder, sound decoder. If you get the Tsunami 2 sound decoder, those lighting functions all will work. So let's see what kind of questions we've got tonight out there. And I'm going to go back a little bit because when I'm flipping through the screens, I don't always see your questions. Speaking of the Rocky Mountain Train Show, we've got the organizer here tonight. He says it was great having you at the show. Yeah, we want to say thank you to John and all of his hard workers at the Rocky Mountain Train Show. It was a great event. It really was. It was really well done. We had zero issues all weekend. And the biggest thing that I took away from the show was it was just great to see some of you guys that stopped by the booth, introduce yourselves and talk to us about our favorite hobby, which is model railroading. We got a lot of good suggestions. And we hope that you take those suggestions to our product suggestion email. A lot of you guys had some great ideas. In fact, I told you, please put those in the product suggestion email because they were such good ideas that both Mark and I thought we need to do those. So put those product suggestions out there. Our developers are actively viewing those. In fact, I told them this morning that they might see an increase in emails in the next few days. And again, it was just great talking to you guys and hearing your stories about Athearn and what models that you like and what models you've purchased throughout the years. It was just great to interact. And again, thank you, Rocky Mountain Train Show, for everything that you did. You made our stay extremely easy. We enjoyed the hospitality. And again, great job on the show. It's just so good to be back at shows after being shut inside for almost 2 years. Let's see, who else do we have? Got some folks from Western Australia. Thanks for joining us today. We always appreciate our friends outside of the United States for joining us. Matt says he's heading to a train show in Davenport. Davenport train show next weekend. I just went through Davenport yesterday. James Hawkins says regarding the SD40, he says, how about some SD45T-2s, especially in Cotton Belt 90s area? Yeah, that's a great suggestion. You know what I'm going to tell you to do? I'm going to tell you to go over to athearn.com, go to the Contact Us page, select the product suggestions email and put that in. It's a great suggestion. Yeah, thank you for, yeah, like I said, if I appear a little tired, yeah, it was a long haul, and I appreciate the support out there. And again, we do it because we enjoy talking with you guys. Like I said before, most of us here at Athearn, we are modelers, and we do it because we like to interact with fellow modelers. I'm seeing a lot of you guys too posting different shows out there. Here's one in Green Bay. I'm putting that out there just in case anybody's in the Green Bay area or the Davenport, Iowa area. Here's your chance this weekend. You've got a train show to go to. Stephen wants to know, are these N scale or HO? These are HO. These are Athearn HO. We will be talking about Athearn N scale, but not tonight. Zach Malcolm is happy about having the Kodachromes run in this release. A lot of SP modelers are happy. Just quickly going through here, looking for some questions that you might want to have asked. We've got about a few minutes left, so go ahead and fire off those emails. I'm going to be watching the feed here off to my right, your left. Anthony wants to know the last SP units that we showed, did they have flashing ditch lights? I think based on the prototype, those did not flash. If the prototype didn't flash, technically we won't always make that feature available. If it's something that was done, say like Norfolk Southern, which they're known for their oscillating ditch lights, when the horn is activated, we'll do it. But the SP ones, I don't believe had that feature. Yeah, you know, and the other thing that makes this cool, Roger, is, you know, I'll bring back the picture here and zoom in on it. What our developers were able to do is, in the old days, this was just a molded piece. You can see clear through this now. The way the drivetrain is made in these, you can see clear through. You can see daylight on the other side. And that wasn't possible in the past, and now it is. And so that's something to think about. And, you know, these are Athearn locomotives. They're nicely detailed for, you know, for the road that they represent. They have details that are specific for their road. And that's a neat feature to have. And that's a feature that wasn't available not too long ago. This was just a molded piece of plastic that simulated that. It's no longer simulated. You can see right through it. And it's very impressive. And that's one of the things that makes the tunnel so cool, is seeing that. DG is liking the Potash. He's liking that scheme. Ron wants to know, would it be possible to include animated bearing caps on all rolling stock where appropriate throughout the Athearn name? That's something that's generally a Genesis feature. So you're not necessarily going to see it in the Athearn, and you probably won't see it in the Roundhouse. That is a feature that we're going to leave for Genesis, but that's a good question. Delta wanted to know about that. Now, there you go. Jason has a comment. He says, just want to say the latest run of SD60s are great. Next time, how about a Sioux line number 6000s to 620 with a strobe on the engineer side of the cab? Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Thank you for that comment. We appreciate it. Send that comment in to our product suggestion email, and it might happen. Let's see, I've got time for one more question. And Terry, I know, but Terry, you're, I think, from the Midwest. I'm from New England. I don't know what to tell you about saying of potash or potash. It's hard to get the New Englander out of the guy that lives in the Midwest. All right, so I'm going to leave with one more question. Ron, are these Genesis models? They are not Genesis. They're not Genesis. They are actually Athearn. They're Athearn HO models. What does that mean? They're nicely detailed, but they're detailed based on their road name. So details that are specific to a railroad, such as those lighting, the Mars lights on the SP units, that's what's going to get modeled. Genesis, we take a deeper dive. We're showing off models that are not only of the same road name, but have slightly different details, or an interesting prime for grime version. We're pretty much offering these as nicely detailed, but those details are specific to the road name, not just the road number. All right. So with that, Frederick Smith says, say pot ash. Okay, pot ash. I hope you guys are happy. We will leave it at that. So next week, we've got a new Train Tuesday, same time, same day. You don't ever have to question what day Train Tuesday is because it's part of the name. We're going to be coming at you live 7:00 p.m. Central Standard Time. I know the days are getting longer and it's probably getting warmer out there, but don't miss Train Tuesday. If you do miss Train Tuesday, go on over to our YouTube channel, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell for new videos that drop in weekly. Keep your eyes open too for a new Athearn Extra. We're going to have a special treat for you talking about the GP9s and some other products that we're talking about this month. And also don't forget, we are on Facebook, Instagram, and yes, we are on TikTok. We'll be updating some more videos on TikTok here soon. So if you're a part of the TikTok crowd, you're going to want to check us out. Until next time, everybody, I hope everybody is happy and safe. Do some good modeling out there. And until next time, hi, Greens, everybody. Take care.